Welcome to Off the Top Rope live here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. Thanks everybody for tuning in here. This is the Dynamite for August 6th, 2025 post show here on the channel. Thanks everybody who was very active over the weekend for SummerSlam content. I appreciate it. And listen, a lot of news has been made in recent days, hours on the WWE front. And I felt that in some respect, AEW had some sort of an opportunity to maybe, win over some new fans and, kind of create a new exciting audience. Because now this is their first time in 3 weeks that they've actually been on the road. They did the residency in Chicago for 3 weeks, and you had a world championship match last week that for some reason didn't main event. And, it was main evented by Mark Briscoe and Ricochet. And we're now inside 3 weeks until literally AEW had 6 or so weeks to build to Forbidden Door, which is going to be a pretty packed show, doing it from London at the O2, which will be great for them. Lively crowd. The London fans are always very energized and very entertained. And I got a question for you guys who are watching, all over the way on YouTube. What feels forbidden about this Forbidden Door? Because outside of, the what is now an announced 4-way for Mercedes Moné, who made her first appearance since All In, also had a wardrobe malfunction. She might have shown a little bit of nipple. For those of you sickos on the internet, some people identified that. And it probably was because her top got dragged down because she's carrying so many goddamn championships. So any of you sick freaks out there in the space who wanted to see what Mercedes Moné's nipples look like, go be sick freaks about that. But that's what the internet's for. So anyway, the 4-way that is announced is going to be Forbidden Door. They're going to have CMLL. They're going to have Stardom involved in it. And then obviously Alex Windsor, Mrs. Will Ospreay, the future Mrs. Will Ospreay, gets in on this match. And there is somewhat of a tie to Athena and then obviously to Mercedes Moné. But that's really the only Forbidden Door match on this show. We don't know who Hangman Adam Page is facing. The show's 18 days away. We don't know who Hangman Adam Page is facing, but although it's been heavily hinted that it's going to be MJF, both world championship matches, at least the way that it looks right now, one of them's already been announced, the other hasn't, involve people who won seemingly Money in the Bank contract privileges in the Casino Gauntlets at All in Texas. And now seemingly we're going right to those people as the top contenders for the world championships. And you guys think that Tony Khan has everything sorted out. You can't build stories without having people use guarantee. It bothered me. And you go watch the video on the channel. It bothered me so much that Athena on a couple different occasions has left Toni Storm laying in the ring and is not pinned her on the spot. Yet she is going to wait until London to sign and execute that contract. She could have been women's champion by now, multiple times. And I am not convinced in the slightest, and I love Athena. I am not convinced in the slightest that Athena is beating Timeless Toni Storm. She pinned her, I think she pinned her last week. She laid her out in the ring with her finish, the O-face, and just walked away. I'm like, what? She stared down Mercedes Moné and just walked away. What? So, maybe they're trying to convince us, hey, Athena and Mercedes could potentially be a women's championship match moving forward, and maybe they want to, present the idea. But listen, I just have no reason to believe that Toni Storm's going to get pinned a second time. I have no reason to believe that. And then you got Max, MJF, in the main event. Good to see him wrestle. It was a decent match between him and Mark Briscoe. I would have loved if they didn't use a table, because technically that's illegal in a straight wrestling match. MJF gets the win. Mark Briscoe's foot was on the ropes. Bryce Remsburg didn't see it. That was the end of the match. He bloodies up Mark Briscoe. Hangman comes out. We didn't see a lot of Hangman on this show, but I do love the way that they are portraying the world champion on this show. So at least, in some respect, that is okay. But we're basically telling the same story within two world championship divisions for the men's and women's world championships in this company. The two people who are the primary challengers going into Forbidden Door are not forbidden, and they just won contracts to win these opportunities. That's not storytelling. That's not compelling anything. That's not doing anything to be creative. You gifted them these championship matches that are effectively money in the bank level, and yet here we are. You're going to basically effectively maybe they find a way to, but here's the problem. If they have Max just have a straight match, or you have Max just get in, let's say it's a three-way with Mark Briscoe mixed in there, so you can protect Max. So Athena has to execute her contract, but Max doesn't. Like, this is the stuff that I don't think that these people think about in that company. And it frustrates me because, to me, one thing that we need to realize with, as much as we shit on WWE and the way that their product is, and how much the inordinate sum of money that they're charging for, AEW still charges $50 for these pay-per-views. And this is supposed to be a worldwide global event with, Forbidden Door concepts, people crossing the line from other companies. And we're supposed to have something like that. Outside of the women's four-way for the TBS Championship, there is nothing forbidden about this show. We're 3 weeks out, people. We don't know who the CMLL person is going to be in this match. We don't know who the Stardom person. I'm sure for the internet wrestling geeks who love this shit, they'll enjoy it. And good for Alex Windsor. I thought she was the right choice. It was either her or Queen Aminata, I thought, should win that four-way, effectively buying their way into this match. Alex Windsor, deserves an opportunity to be there. But yeah, you got Swerve and Okada, that kind of came together, out of thin air. Basically, Swerve and Okada basically came in out of thin air because, Osprey's not available. What's going on at PHX? How you doing, man? And if you guys are in the chat, get your super chats in, get your questions in. Best way to support the channel here. I'm not going to pretend like I'm JD from New York or Solid Monster. Those guys are the OGs in this community. I tried doing these to just kind of give you guys a different voice and a different opinion in this community. But like I said, look, wrestling in 2025 has not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination. WWE is more profitable, and they're trying to suck our wallets dry. AEW, what the fuck is interesting? What's the momentum that they've got coming out of All in Texas? There's nothing there. And yes, Sky Blue absolutely botched that thing. They went for a different spot. I don't know if that was planned or not. Queen Aminata planned it. That was bad. I like Sky. I love me some Sky Blue. But yeah, the code blue is a recipe for disaster. She's got to come up with a different finisher. I agree on that totally. And within like an hour or so before the show, we find out that Jon Moxley's facing Speedball Mike Bailey. And I laughed my ass off when I saw this. I laughed my ass off at this. Because if you guys paid attention to the channel, and I dropped something yesterday, and obviously the news has gotten a little bit more prevalent, where there's a big report from Fightful Select that the Hurt Syndicate apparently didn't want to lose to people, and apparently MVP doesn't like Speedball Mike Bailey. I don't know what his problem is. Are his teeth too white? Is he too Canadian for him? Is he too small? Is he too much of a karate kid? I don't know. But the fact that Speedball Mike Bailey was facing the former world heavyweight champion Jon Moxley in the opening match of this show just made me laugh my ass off. And I thought that I thought this was bizarre but then I was like, listen, I'll tell you this much, guys. If Speedball would have won this match, I would have laughed my fucking ass off. My fucking ass off, because it would have been so funny. It would have been a giant middle finger to MVP. PHX, I totally wonder if the Moxley speedball thing was basically, Tony Khan saying, hey, we've got this news out in the open with Fightful Select. Let's just throw speedball in there, have him, do what he does great. He wrestles fine, but he's been pretty much projected like a loser since he got to AEW. And let's throw him in the ring there with the former world heavyweight champion and give him a good match. And it was a good match. It was fun. John Moxley, say what you will about him, that guy did more to elevate Mike Bailey than anybody else in this company has in the 6 months that he's been there. I like Mike Bailey. I loved him in TNA. He was one of the great X Division champions that company's ever seen. So, but what's the end game here? They used it as a vehicle to, get John Moxley potentially distracted by Darby Allin, who chloroformed friggin' Wheeler Yuta, put him in a body bag, almost ran him over. And basically it was like John Moxley and Darby Allin looks like it's going to happen at Forbidden Door. Again, another non-Forbidden Door match. Good job, Tony. Good job. I don't. Here's the thing about the Hurt Syndicate. If they're on the way out, that means they're going to have to void their contracts, right? They're signed up. Or unless Tony wants to bench them, and you want to try and bench those guys, Tony Khan is like a pipsqueak compared to Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and even MVP. Those guys are fucking mammoth human beings, especially Lashley. Shelton's no slouch either, and MVP's a pretty big dude too. You're going to tell those guys, hey, you're not getting booked on television? Listen, I do think that the Hurt Syndicate are going to lose the championships in London. But now, based off that report, they don't want to lose to FTR. So does FTR even win this tournament? They're facing Brodito, and that was one of the high, I guess you could say one of the highlights of this show. I love that they're pushing Brody King, and I think Bandito is fucking spectacular. I don't know why they need to have the Ring of Honor champion. If you're gonna have the Ring of Honor champion on television, make the Ring of Honor. I understand he's gonna defend it against Hechicero. I don't think he's gonna lose it to Hechicero unless they're gonna do a whole Don Callis takeover. But I love that they're pushing Brody King. He's from Van Nuys, which is 20 or so some odd miles from where I'm based out in Los Angeles. He's from the Valley. Valley kids got his stick together. Also, I'm not going to tell Brody King anything bad because that guy will whip my ass, and he will probably whip your ass too. Brody King has gotten over, and I love it. And they're an entertaining as fuck tag team. So if one thing I've been critical about with the tag team division is they haven't elevated new teams. They beat the Outrunners last week. I don't understand why they did that. But then the Young Bucks put over Brodito. Cool. And based off the reporting that you said, I thought FTR and they were heading towards FTR and Hurt Syndicate for London. I'm not so sure that, listen, if you're listen, I'm not going to tell Tony Khan what to do. I don't know what's going on in that fucker's mind. But if it's me, I have Brodito go all the fucking way. Go all in on them. If you're going to do this experiment and based off the shit that's going on with the Hurt Syndicate, maybe the Hurt Syndicate are going to be willing to lose to Brodito. And Brodito basically slides in to what listen, Brodito, let's call it what it is. Brody King and Bandito are effectively Swerve and Will Ospreay because Will Ospreay's not healthy. That's what this is. So if you're going to do that, just go all the way with them. Go all the way. Have FTR lose, maybe because of Copeland or something like that. I don't know how you do that with the whole stipulation that they have. I don't know how you're going to get to Christian. You still got a month to do that. But FTR doesn't need the tag team championships at this point. They don't. That's the easy way out. To me, just elevate a new tag team. By the way, I love what they're doing with the Young Bucks. I hated that they won last week, but I love what they're doing with the Young Bucks. They called them Max and Jeremy, which was fucking hilarious. If you watch TNA, the old Generation Me, that was pretty funny. They couldn't get out from underneath their wall behind it. They had to give instructions to Justin Roberts, and That was pretty funny. Like they're making fun of themselves. I'm not the biggest Young Bucks fan for some of their politics, but I understand how great they are in terms of tag team wrestling, and they always put on good matches, and they're always high energy. But it's the same shit that I've seen with these guys forever. I do like that they're making fun of themselves. That element of it, and they did the right thing. They should have done this last week with fucking, the Outrunners and put those guys over, but they didn't. But they do put over Brody King and Bandito. So I did appreciate that, at least in the early stages of what happened on this show. So main event itself, fine match. Like I didn't hate it. I just, why did we need the table out there? Mark Briscoe goes for the Froggy Bow like 6 different times, finally gets it, and it doesn't end up mattering. He doesn't win. We pretty much sacrificed Mark Briscoe to get to the title match that we all expected. And listen, I'm not complaining about an MJF Hangman, sequel here. I'm not, but the vehicle and the way that we've gotten to it, like with how similar it is to what they're doing in the women's division, it's like you had MJF win the title shot. Shouldn't it be MJF sort of messing with the fucking mind of Hangman? But Hangman's controlling the issue, which I do appreciate. But at the same time, it's like, okay, why are we automatically just going to Hangman and MJF? Because listen, that's a goal long term. That should be a goal long term. Because MJF has a guaranteed contract to hold for the world championship. But now we're seemingly heading towards a possibility of him having to execute it to get that match. Or we may get a 3-way with Mark Briscoe involved. Or hell, Hangman may just face Tanahashi. Everybody seems to think Tanahashi, who's winding down his in-ring career, even though he can barely move at this point. Maybe it's Shingo Takagi or one of those other guys from New Japan. I don't even know who's do they dare go to Mystico? Because that would really piss MJF off if they want to go, with the CMLL component of this. But that's if you want to go forbidden. But like, listen, we're 18 days away from this show in London, and it doesn't seem like this company really even gives a shit. They don't. Like, how is this show forbidden? Somebody tell me, what is forbidden about this Forbidden Door? The first Forbidden Door was great. Second one was made up fine because you had 2 dream matches. You had Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, and then you had Bryan Danielson and Kazuchika Okada. Last year, your main event was Swerve and Ospreay. Wasn't a lot of Forbidden Door stuff. I mean, Stephanie Vaquera was the most relevant thing that came out of the Forbidden Door side of it. This year, you got nothing. There is nothing forbidden about this show. Absolutely, positively nothing. What can you do? AAA's like out of business. CMLL, like you guys, this is like them doing that Grand Slam Mexico show in the build to All in Texas even infuriates me more because that could have been much more useful if they would have done that this month in the build to Forbidden Door and set up some stories out there. So the calendar's screwed up, I think it's going to be a good event. They'll have a lively crowd in London. Those people always get rowdy, and it's going to be at the O2, which is a great venue. But man, it's just nothing forbidden about this show. Nothing. So, all right, let's go chronologically. And if you guys have questions, get your super chats in. Get some of your questions in about what you thought about the show, or even if you guys have any WWE questions related to what's going on, whether it be Brock Lesnar, whether it be the whole signing of the deal with WWE and ESPN, Disney. Get those questions in. We'll talk about that here once we get to the review itself. So Jon Moxley faces Speedball Mike Bailey. One thing that I thought was hilarious that they said to start off the show in the tease to this match when Moxley was going to the ring, they said, Moxley went into our production meeting and demanded that he face somebody. It's funny because, hey, this whole narrative that AEW doesn't have production meetings, and now we're just openly talking about production meetings. And apparently, I guess Tony Khan or somebody else in kayfabe said, hey, Let's go to the locker room. Let's see who wants it. And Mike Bailey stood up and said, hey, let it be me. I thought it was hilarious that this match was just randomly announced like an hour and a half before the show, given all the stuff that came out about Speedball, and MVP not liking him. And then, John Moxley, hey, crashing a production meeting. 1 week ago, this guy was fighting for the world championship. And hey, we're opening up the show with him against Speedball Mike Bailey. I got nothing against Speedball Mike Bailey. The way he's been booked has been bullshit. And maybe that's because, a lot of people are trying to cut down people. But this match itself was fine. Speedball can go. The guy's very entertaining in the ring. Does a lot of cool flips. It pops their crowd. I know some people in the chat are advocating for big men. Side note, where the fuck are the ops? The ops have been out to pasture since All in Texas. Hobbs nowhere to be found. Hook, we haven't seen him in God knows how long. Select facts and quotes. There was something that they put up on social media where basically the Hurt Syndicate walked by Mike Bailey while he was filming something on a mini camera, and they said, fuck Mike Bailey. I'm wondering why the fuck that didn't make it on television. Why not work it into a storyline? I totally agree on that. It's just, will they stay on okay, so PHX, what are you guys going to, will they stay on TNT? Will they, or on TBS with the splits? Just not be on Max or what? I have no idea. Every indication, some people in the industry have said that this is nothing to worry about, but I've read some more stuff that seems to indicate that there might be a cause for concern if AEW's ratings don't start to, improve. Maybe there is something different that they go forward to. I don't know about the Max component. This is something that just got introduced to them when they signed that new deal last year, when they re-upped. As far as I know, they're signed up for another 3 years. But, basketball's not there anymore. They need inventory. So I think they got some college football coming in as well as part of the whole situation where they dealt out when, inside the NBA, ended up going to ESPN. I think they got some Big 12 football games. Listen, I don't know. But anyway, so what I was saying is where the hell are the ops? I understand Samoa Joe, I think, has had some concerns about his neck, maybe a concussion again. He was, kind of dealt with in that TNT title match. Look at what's been going on with working angles in terms of WWE guys. I honestly think that this Karrion Kross thing, there's more to it. You kind of thought something, but Triple H brushing it off at the post media deal was weird. Karrion Kross kind of bringing light to it. He's got a book coming out. I think there's more to that story. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a legal guy if this deal could be voided at all. If you're asking me, it's just, it doesn't seem and I'm not saying, listen, 2024 was not the greatest year for AEW. They did bring in talent and there was some urgency, at least at some point, but I don't know about what you guys think here. And like I said, this leads me into my whole forbidden door and some of the stuff that a lot of the AEW fans, and if there's some AEW fans here in the chat who want to, bark at me, go ahead. Tell me what's so great about this company in 2025. What am I missing? Hey, look at this company right now. Look at since they signed that contract, I don't feel the same desire. I don't feel the same hunger. I don't feel these, and Tony Khan can say it until he's blue in the face. I don't feel the hunger and, the eagerness to, put out good television. I think they're just spinning their wheels. They can do good wrestling, but none of it means anything. The storytelling's not there. Compelling angles are not there. It's just, hey, let's throw the people that we know who can work, and they're all about work rate. And I know some people in the chat aren't really about work rate. You're not trying to build new stars. You're basically sticking to the same people. some of whom who have way more creative control than others. And it's led to this dog shit product that, a lot of people are wondering, like, hey, what's a compelling story that we're going to tell? It's just, listen, kayfabe is nothing. And with AEW, their mentality, what I've noticed specifically really since this contract signed, like it was fine before they re-up this new deal. It's almost like they got their money and they're fine. And they have sort of rested on their laurels and they're like, okay, let's just do whatever we want. And, we'll please our sickos. We don't care about bringing in new audience. Let's do what we know. And that's wrestling. But there's no story to any of this. There's no, life to this show. It's just wrestling matches. And if you like wrestling, great. But especially going into a show that really is not supposed to have much story in it with Forbidden Door, there's not even a hook to this show. Like, the concept of Forbidden Door is supposed to be, hey, we're cracking through the Forbidden Door and we're going to go do stuff and, have matches that you wouldn't expect to see. Except it's just a traditional AEW pay-per-view. Like, if TNA and WWE went out and did a cross-the-line type show, that would be more Forbidden Door-esque than what AEW is doing with this show. So, I know I haven't really even talked about this show. I've just kind of ranted about, how frustrated I am with the build of this. But that's really what I wanted to talk about with you guys on here. So, yeah, Jon Moxley, Speedball Mike Bailey. Basically, Kevin Knight gets into it with Marina Shafir. There was a couple of really good near falls. Darby Allin's distraction almost led to a 3 count. I thought Jon Moxley was honestly going to lose. Well, that's the other thing. Well, and here's the problem with doing a big man's division. There's not enough guys. Like, if you're talking like super heavyweights, there's not enough guys to do a division. And the last thing that this company needs is another championship. So if you're going to push somebody, just push these big guys, push Hobbs, push Wardlow, push Samoa Joe, push these big dudes that, have intimidating physiques. Tony Khan just doesn't want to do that. He's about work rate. He's about that Japanese style, the strong style, where these guys go out there and put on 20-minute 5-star classics that are going to make Dave Meltzer fucking cream in his pants. Like, that's just what he does. He wants to pop the internet fans. No, and they do have too many championships. That's why this whole idea that Celeb Facts and Quotes is trying to push with, the super heavyweight division. I totally understand that. Yes, there are absolutely draws in building monsters. Like, God, dude, I was fucking, Big Bill too, but they've shown they don't give a shit about Big Bill. They don't care about Big Bill. I'd push him. I know he's got some baggage on him, but they seem to be, going towards something with Big Bill and Chris Jericho, but Chris Jericho's dropped off the face of the earth. That's probably good for the rest of the world, to be honest with you. No, and I totally agree with, the PWG, like the reason why AEW got so big back in the day is because Vince McMahon was out of his depth as head creator. He had no compelling stories. The wrestling wasn't that great. And, storylines were not working. And AEW actually early on in their infancy, not only was a great wrestling with the guy, some people say vanilla midgets or whatever, but listen, they had compelling storytelling with like the Kenny Omegas and, the Hangmans and, even Cody when he was there. Like, they had some good storytelling going on. Lance Archer's another one that I think I would really want to see pushed too. Although Lance Archer's getting up there in a little bit in age. He's another big guy, but they've typecasted their whole big guys and they don't present them in a way like, WWE. Like, one thing I will say about Vince McMahon is that guy knew how to build a fucking monster in terms of a monster character. Like, look what's happening with, look what happened with Braun Strowman. I wish they would have crowned Braun Strowman, but they never did. Hey, they got Jacob Fatu, who's like 300 pounds. And yes, Cody was the tip of the iceberg. Punk was the end of the iceberg. when really it all fell apart for AEW. And I think a lot of people, even the sickest of the sickos, they don't want to admit it. They're like, hey, our company's so great because we're just at our core roots of just wrestling. When Cody was there, it was a good vehicle backstage. He was a great storyteller, even though his booking was kind of finicky and whatnot. But he also policed the talent backstage. It was great there. CM Punk, for, all of the nonsense that he created back there, that guy knew what the fuck he was doing. He did. So, yes, and Braun Strowman won one world title, and it was during COVID because Roman Reigns backed out of the match. I trust me. I loved Braun Strowman, and that guy got over because, I'm not finished with you. And they've got guys, they've got guys in AEW. Listen, Wardlow, they totally missed the boat with Wardlow. Totally missed the boat with Wardlow. What you got, Fresh Fly? What you got? I want to kind of get to this review at some point, but you guys are very lively in the chat, and I'm very ADD tonight, and I'm just sort of looking at the chat more when I should be kind of focusing on some others. There's a good chance that I do potentially subscribe because I'm a sports fan too. So there's other stuff on, the DTC app that they're going to drop that, also I think if you are a cable subscriber, and I have YouTube TV, I don't know if you guys have cut the cord. I think there's rumors that, if you have that, you're good to go. So it may not be as bad as people think. Also, Peacock was going up to $16 for the ad-free version. So it's not that big of a step in the right direction. Now, if you're I'd love to collaborate with JD and Solid Monster too. I know JD's doing his live show right now. Listen, I may not often agree with that guy. That guy can be very confrontational and he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But one thing I do respect about him is he always keeps it real. People think that he's a shill for WWE. He shits on WWE when they're bad. He shits on AEW a lot more than he did in the early infancy stages because he sees a lot of the same problems that I've seen over the last several years. So, listen, and this is a great question that we can get into. Let me get into this right now. So, if Cody doesn't leave AEW, and maybe I could actually do a video about this, about the guys who honestly I thought could have potentially taken the belt off of Roman Reigns. Because here's my follow-up question to that. Is Vince McMahon in control of WWE? That's my question. My question to you guys is is Vince, if Cody Rhodes is still in AEW, because remember, Vince brought Cody in. That was not a Triple H decision. So who would take the belt off of Roman? That's a good question. Gun to my head, I'd probably say Seth Rollins. Gun to my head. Because of the history that they have there with the Shield. And you see them going back to that now. Gun to my head, I probably would say Seth Rollins is probably the guy that ultimately is the one that would have, ended the Tribal Chief because of the history that they have there. That's what it would have felt like if Cody wasn't the guy there. So, Drew's a good answer too. LA Knight would be a great answer too. Here's the problem. If I actually was fine with Drew losing at Clash at the Castle because I thought that, there was more to be gained. I think they wanted to do something historic with, they wanted to do something historic with Roman and have him be like a epic title run. But here's the problem with LA Knight. Before Triple H got there, before Triple H took over, Sami Zayn would have been good, but I don't know if they would have had a direction if Triple H wasn't in power. It was that was a joke where they put Sami with the bloodline. Triple H brought that home. Sami could have been a good argument. LA was Max Dupree, guys. LA was Max Dupree. To me, listen, Drew would have been a great answer. But to me, like I said, the story was there with Seth Rollins. You're already seeing him go back to like the Shield lineage again. I think it would have been Seth, in my opinion. So, But it's a great conversation to have, and maybe we could do that on a separate video. But you guys are very active, not talking. But okay, so anyway, Speedball Mike Bailey, this 14-minute match, it was fine for what it is. I don't know why we had to have John Moxley a week after a world championship match have to sell for 15 minutes for Mike Bailey. But hey, maybe this was like a little rib backstage, and Tony was like, hey, Mike Bailey, you're in the news for all the wrong reasons. Let's just throw you out. Let's just throw you out there. Yes, Clash at the Castle. By the way, Gunther, Sheamus, all-timer. Maybe The Rock, if he wanted to do work. If Rock Roman wanted to do work, maybe. I have no reason to believe that Dwayne wanted to show up for business until TKO bought the thing. He didn't care. So, but yeah, match itself was fine. Looks like we're getting so basically during the course of this match, Wheeler Yuta gets basically kidnapped. He gets kidnapped and thrown in a body bag, almost gets run over by Darby Allin. Basically, they're leading towards Forbidden Door. And that's really where we're going with that. It was a fun match, but like I said, really no story to it. It looks like they're doing Kevin Knight and John Moxley next week. Why? I don't know. Because, hey, we got to have both members of Jet Speed. Sure. We get the Fatal 4-Way, Sky Blue, Queen Aminata, Alex Windsor, and Billy Starks. I don't know about you guys from watching this match. There was a lot of cool moves that they did in this match. Obviously, there was the botch near the end with Sky Blue trying to do her Code Blue finisher into a chair on Queen Aminata, and Queen Aminata just hit like almost like a Northern Lights bomb into the chair, which looked nasty. But I don't know about you guys. It felt like these women were operating in quicksand, and nothing really flew in this match. I was watching this. I was like, yeah, there's a bunch of cool moves going on, but it felt like they were waiting and just getting people into position, just like, oh, hey, let's do this spot. Let's do this spot. Nothing flew really consistently in this match. And that's not to knock on the women. This is what happens when you book these convoluted, spot fest matches, hey, they like to do these all-star four women, celebrity 4 women, and they didn't make this a 4-way for $400,000 or something like that. But it felt like these women were just they killed it. Like, they did a lot of cool moves, but it also, like you said, it felt like in portions of the match, footwork was off. Some of these women were just waiting for people to be in the right spot. And then Sky Blue doing her convoluted finish, it got botched. They ended up doing another spot. I don't know if that was planned or if they just winged it, but either way, it was, that's actually a good idea for Freshfly. Maybe I should do a mailbag, on one of these days, if you guys are up for it. And then like I said, bring just money for super chats and just, we could have fun, maybe, have a cold beer on here, just enjoy ourselves and, just shoot the shit. That's actually not a terrible idea. Like I said, I'm still working stuff in progress here, but yeah, Alex Windsor gets the win here. Gets rolls up. I think it was Billy Starks, and rolls up, and gets the win. So Alex Windsor advances. Mercedes Moné before this match, actually, she basically showed up. She was eating a piece of watermelon, had her 8 belts out there, and, ultimately, basically said nothing, got out there to the ring. So she gets to the ring because Tony storms out during the match. Mercedes Moné walks out. She gives her championships. I think it was to Aubrey Edwards. It was actually kind of funny. She was had so many championships. So then she faces off with Alex Windsor. Tony Storm trying to defend her newfound friend, Alex Windsor. Tony Storm's got her back turned. Athena climbs to the top rope, hits the O-face, and Mercedes hits a backstabber on Windsor. The heels basically effectively have a truce, and they basically just stare at each other, and nothing happened. And I said this at the top of the show. Why didn't Athena just, sign the contract and pin Tony Storm? Right? Anybody else notice that? That was weird. They're not making Athena look very smart here. they're not making Athena look very smart, because they're like, hey, we're gonna Athena now. Let's peel this back for a second. Athena's pinned the women's champion, and then she laid her out again, and on both separate occasions didn't sign the contract, and she's waiting for another 3 weeks until Forbidden Door, 2 weeks from Sunday. Anybody else think that's fucking stupid? That tells me that Athena's not winning the championship. Why didn't Athena sign the contract and just pin Toni Storm? That's like, this is my problem with this whole concept. This is my problem. Like, it's just like, you've got two people who won Money in the Bank privilege effectively to, cash in the contract whenever they want. You've got MJF roaming around basically begging Adam Page for a world championship match rather than, like MJF, it kind of feeds his character. Meanwhile, Athena's just going after it. And I'm just like, what are we doing? Is Tony Khan and his creative team that like inept to tell a story? Like Athena, by logic, by pinning the women's champion in a tag match, should have an opportunity at the women's championship at Forbidden Door on television without having to execute that contract. Yet, here we are. She's going to execute the contract. We're taking her word for it at the pay-per-view. And yet she has laid out the women's champion in back-to-back weeks and has not pinned her and executed that contract. What sense is there in that? It's stupid. It's stupid. For you sickos who didn't join, I hope you, if you were wondering what Mercedes Monet's nipples looked like, apparently one of them showed on television. Some sickos clipped that off. And I joke it's because she's wearing all of her championships around her outfit, and it pulled it down. I'm sorry. I don't get. Listen, I've warmed over. Listen, Mercedes is a fucking outstanding professional wrestler. Her character sucks. It's nothing. What the hell does being a CEO mean? Like she doesn't really show any CEO tendencies. She's not what the boss was, but she's a great wrestler. Cool. But she walks around with 8 titles, none of which matter at all. I do like that they basically said, hey, Alex Windsor once held one of the titles that she has. Cool. But until Mercedes defends one of those titles on television, all these people telling me that, hey, it's great that she's elevating women's wrestling by having 8 championships. Just by carrying those championships around like they're a fucking accessory. She hasn't defended the TBS championship really since, what was it, Dynamite 300, right before All in Texas. She hasn't defended that title in like a month, and she's only defended it like 6 times this year. So, look, it was good to see her on television. That it's good to know that she exists. She's going to have a match at Forbidden Door. It would be nice to see somebody beat her in this 4-way. It could be a convenient out to get the title to Alex Windsor. I doubt that we're going to see that because I don't know. I think they said it's like September or October where she's going to pass Jade Cargill. So to me, I don't think Mercedes is losing that championship at all. So then Renee Paquette, she interviewed, there was an earlier backstage promo. This was kind of a production mess here. They interview the Young Bucks backstage. They basically tell a production guy, hey, do this the right way. Give these instructions to Justin Roberts. Make sure our pyro and our stuff go off without a hitch. I love that the Young Bucks are leaning into this. So then we go from Renee Paquette backstage in an earlier promo to the ring with Don Callis and Kyle Fletcher. And, Don Callis gets a ton of heat. And, he gets yelled at. Basically, they talk about Dustin Rhodes and Adam Cole. And he says Kyle Fletcher says he's going to be the greatest TNT champion. And I don't know what Don Callis and, with this AEW thing where they have to do like this weird art piece for every single one of the Don Callis family, but they did this weird piece of art where Don Callis now all of a sudden has a 6-pack. Kyle Fletcher has a 6. Listen, Kyle Fletcher, he's great and he's got a ton of potential. This was not a good promo. This dragged on for a while. He didn't hint at who his next challenger was going to be. And, basically we just hinted, hey, watch Collision, who I face. And it was revealed that he's going to face Tomohiro Ishii, Mr. Collision. I like the Stone Pitbull, but who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Um, it, man, it's, listen, and then we get Cope. He's going to face Stokely Hathaway. Cool. I like what they're doing with the Christian story. To me, um, to me, Christian, it'll be interesting to see how they get them together. Listen, he's going to probably kill Stokely. I don't know how FTR is going to factor into it. They've got a champion. They've got effectively doing one of those championship title matches moving forward, but who knows? So then we get Young Bucks and Brodito. This match was great. Longest match of the show. I love Bandito. I love Brody King. Celeb facts and quotes. You want to see somebody go in the super heavyweight division? Brody King should be right at the top of that list. I love me some Brody King. And I like that they're pushing him. If you guys weren't on here before I started the show, if you guys weren't paying attention, they need to go all the way with Brodito. Don't have FTR win. Have Brodito win. Have them win at Forbidden Door. Give them the tag team championships and just move forward. That's what I think they should do. So this was a fun match. The Young Bucks are great. Like, hey, their whole entrance was pretty fucking hilarious. They say they're Max and Jeremy. Shout out Generation Me. I know some people are dropping TNA stuff in the chat. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, this is a good match. And hey, the right team won. Like, Outrunner should have won last week, but so then we get to the Hurt Syndicate backstage. MVP basically says, "Hey, congratulations to Brodito. Whoever wins and gets to Forbidden Door, we're gonna hurt them." MJF comes in there, basically says, "Hey, I want us to be able to stand together." And MVP basically told him, "Listen, ever since you joined this group, you've been all about you, and we are all about, we say we hurt people." So he gave him a thumbs down, effectively kicked him out of the group. And he basically said, "I hope you win the world championship. And, hey, once you do, Bobby's going to come after you because it's going to be business. It won't be personal. It'll be about hurting you." So that's the answer to you guys' question about, hey, when is Bobby Lashley going to go after the world championship? I mean, the logical conclusion would tell you that it will probably be Bobby Lashley and MJF at some point, based off the way that they're blowing this group up. So we'll see. Maybe, MJF aligns with FTR. He's got a relationship with Stokely. Maybe that's what happens here. So so then FTR and Stokely get a retaliation promo. Stokely made jokes about made some offensive lines about Beth Phoenix and Adam Copeland's kid, saying they're juvenile delinquents and all this, typical heel shtick. Stokely's very entertaining. Stokely's going to probably get his ass kicked next week, so sure. We then get an interview on stage with Swerve Strickland. This was fine. Swerve's an okay promo. This was not his best. He's not winning at Forbidden Door. I'd be stunned if Okada lost to him. But Swerve's over. They needed to give him something to do because Ospreay's hurt. And so they went with this. It should be a fun match. It's kind of Forbidden Door, I guess. But, Okada and him are both signed to the same company, so not really. Well, there's reports that that he got kicked out because of a lot of this nonsense that's been going on with, Hurt Syndicate not wanting to put anybody over. So I don't know what's going on there. It's a little bit disappointing that they went there. We get a Queen Aminata. Listen, I love Willow Nightingale. She's fucking adorable. She's got a lot of personality. So I guess her, Ty Mello, and Queen Aminata are going to face the Triangle of Madness, which is Sky Blue. Hopefully she doesn't botch any of her moves. Julia Hart and Tekla. Um, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. Chris Statlander came in, was very goofy. It was kind of entertaining, and it's interesting to see if they're going to build to a reunion of sorts between Stat and Willow, because I love those two women. Mark Briscoe, MJF in the main event. Mark Briscoe seemingly went for the Froggy Bow the entire match. It's listen, the match itself was fine. MJF's a great storyteller. Mark Briscoe's very, very entertaining. I don't know why they needed to bring a table into this match. It was kind of ridiculous. And Mark Briscoe went for a Froggy Bow on the outside. A crow went through a table. The table exploding was actually pretty sick. Right off of that spot, MJF wanted the count out. Briscoe gets back in. He eats a Heath Seeker. His foot gets on the rope before the count of three, but the ref doesn't see it. MJF kicks it off the ropes. MJF wins the match. So he goes over here. 17 minutes. It was good. MJF then attacks Briscoe post match, hits him with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Hangman gets out there. They have a pull apart. And seemingly what we're heading towards is Hangman and MJF. What's different from that than the women's division? We just have, we have the two contract winners from the previous pay-per-view getting championship matches on the next show. It hasn't been announced here, but I'm led to believe that what they're telling you here is one of two things is going to happen. Hangman's going to face MJF, or Hangman's going to face both MJF and Mark Briscoe. That's where this, in my eyes, is going. That's the story that they've been telling, if you want to call it a story. But listen, I don't know. I think it's lazy, man. I really think it's lazy. It's not compelling television. It's not what you want to see. Brandon, listen, I've stopped asking myself that question so many fucking times. They don't know what they're doing with Statlander. Because you guys remember she was heel and she was with Stokely. Had that insane match at All Out a year ago. You guys remember that? Great match. One of the better women's matches that I've seen in this company. Willow and Statlander are fucking awesome. Those women went out there and fucking killed each other, literally, in that I think it was a street fight. And then Statlander had momentum as a heel, but then, hey, Mercedes Hogan needed somebody to beat. And hey, they turned Stat babyface, beat her twice, and here we are. I think this is all going to lead to Stat and Willow reuniting. Makes sense. Seems like they want to make a women's tag division. So there you go. It seems like that's what they're hinting towards. I don't think Stat's going to join the Death Riders. I think the Death Riders are done. Orange Cassidy's hurt. Jericho, I have no idea. I don't really care. I do think that Jericho's going to end up back in WWE. I don't think he's going to wrestle. I don't think they're going to have a retirement tour. I think they're going to induct him into the Hall of Fame. And, that'll be it. Maybe they give him one final match. I don't want to see it. But to me, I think Chris Jericho may be on the way out of AEW. We haven't seen him on television really since, what was it, Dynasty? He lost the championship to Bandito. I mean, Big Bill and Brian Keith has suffered. They're geeks. And Big Bill shouldn't be that way. That guy's a big dude who could actually do some stuff. Say what you will about his personal history. But yeah, Orange Cassidy's been hurt. I think Celeb Facts and Quotes, you're right. He tore his pec. That guy works. I'll give you that. You guys may not like the Orange Cassidy character. That guy works, man. Does anybody really want to see Jericho Cody? I know that was like one of the first AEW title defenses for Jericho. Does anybody really want to see that? Listen, Chris Jericho's not that good anymore, man. I just don't care about him. I don't. But I do think that, I think the fact that we haven't seen him on television, he missed All In. We haven't seen or heard from him in basically like 4 months. I don't know if he is coming back. So, no, I don't think Tony's putting the title on Briscoe either. But I do like that Mark is getting featured a lot more. Mark is very, very entertaining. I don't think OC would ever work in WWE. I do not think Orange Cassidy would work in WWE at all. Maybe you could throw him in NXT. I don't think that would ever get over in WWE. I think he is one of the main beneficiaries of AEW. So, anyway, we're getting close to an hour here, guys. I've gotten through the review. For the last few minutes here, throw in your questions here in the chat. Like I said, super chat's best way to support the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Get a membership. If you want, I'm trying to modify some things here to please the audience. And make some entertaining content for you guys. And yeah, the overrun, this is a good thing. Thanks, Chief, for the comment. I don't like that they can't ever get done on time. I don't like that. It shows a lack of time management. It shows that, you really don't have any coordination with your production. Because if there's one thing that I appreciated about Unreal, even if you guys may have not liked what Unreal was, I think that it showed you the importance of, working together in a production type business. And I wonder, if Tony Khan just doesn't care, he has all this money to burn. He doesn't really give a shit. By the way, Fresh Fly, that's a good question. Who's AEW going to WWE? Let me think. Jericho seems like a logical thing, but like I said, I don't see him wrestling. Max, I think. Listen, I know he signed a contract. Max seems like a very logical guy to go to WWE, but I don't know how far off we are from that. Daniel Bryan's retired. Some people will maybe say Karrion Kross goes to AEW. I doubt that. I think this is all the work. A lot of people want AJ Styles to go to AEW, but I think he's staying WWE. I do think that Cody is going to face McIntyre at some point. I do think that Orton is I would say Orton's probably at least on the short list for WrestleMania for Cody. We can probably get into that and do some sort of a Q&A. Maybe I start doing that on Tuesday or Thursday, depending on, what the structure is, because I know that Thursday typically is Theory's just hurt. Theory's not on his way out, but maybe people will want Theory in WWE. Okay. And one more quick question. So, well, the ESPN deal has been announced. It's only for 10 main roster PLEs in the library of old events. Listen, I think I've heard that there's 12 nights billed for that thing. So I think they're expecting a 2-night SummerSlam and a 2-night WrestleMania. So they're still working on the library for old events. I do think the library for old events, I think that, they could potentially work something out where, the library maybe stays on Peacock. I could totally see NXT, potentially going somewhere else. Maybe they keep the stuff on Peacock. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to go. Private Party, I think, is absolutely going to NXT. Have you guys seen Mark Quinn, by the way? Have you guys seen Mark Quinn from Private Party? That guy is jacked. Isaiah Cassidy actually looked pretty yoked too. Those guys were small dudes, but Mark Quinn looks jacked, dude. Celeb facts and quotes. No way Cody is facing Alberto Del Rio. No way that's happening. Alberto Del Rio. Listen, I understand they brought back Brock Lesnar. If they bring back Alberto Del Rio, that's a whole other issue, because there's some problems. And I know he was in AAA, but they wrote him out of AAA because they didn't want to work with him. Cody Vikingo would actually be a lot of fun. Listen, that's another good thing. If I'm WWE and trying to plan out the rest of John Cena's retirement tour, I think he's got to win the Intercontinental title before he retires. It's amazing. Do you guys realize that John Cena, in the 20 plus years of his career, is not a Grand Slam champion, and we consider him the greatest of all time. Do you guys realize that? Never won the Intercontinental title. Sheamus hasn't either, but everybody makes a big story about it. Nobody talks about John Cena not winning the Intercontinental title. I would not hate it. Listen, I think Dom is great. He's been a great Intercontinental champion. I think he's going to win the AAA title in a couple weeks. There's no shame in having Dom lose to AJ and having John Cena and AJ Styles run it back one more time for the Intercontinental title. And John potentially wins. And then just vacates the championship. Just says, fuck it. I'm going to vacate it. Let's just put it back in a tournament. And, they did it with, didn't they have Bret Hart win the U.S. title when he basically couldn't move? Why not? So, I think if you really want to have this retirement tour, and I know he just lost the WWE title, I think John winning the Intercontinental Championship would be a really good idea. I don't know who it'll be. Maybe he does it with Dom. Or maybe Cena AJ, I think, would be a fucking fantastic idea. That's why some people thought AJ was going to win at SummerSlam. So, I think they're going to 600,000 is probably the baseline. I haven't even seen what they got for NXT. It's not going to beat NXT. Dynamite's not going to beat NXT. So, but yeah, I kind of zipped through that review. You guys were kind of lively bunch in the chat this evening. I appreciate it. I'm going to think up of doing some mailbag stuff. If you guys have questions, I may actually, put it out on my social media. Go subscribe to me. Or not subscribe to me. Go follow me at Off the Mic 28 at OT Mike Sports. We've been doing this for an hour. I didn't expect to be doing this for an hour, but like I said, you guys are a bunch of fun. I appreciate it. So, thanks so much. We appreciate you. I wanted to do, but before this is a good question. I wanted to do this because I just enjoyed talking and wanted to do the podcast component. And then once I saw, hey, I started doing the YouTube thing because it was easier. I didn't have to, pay for a platform or, have to pay for a podcasting service to put my podcast up. And I just started doing short clips. And, a lot of you guys have started to connect with me. You've subscribed to me. You've viewed me. Whether you love me or you hate me, I enjoy what I do. It's a good hobby for me. That, I'm not trying to treat this like a job. But, I do this to interact with people. And I do this to people who love professional wrestling, love sports. That's really what this channel is all about. So, yeah. This has been fun, everybody. I may come back for Friday SmackDown because I know there's going to be shit going on. But I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be live. We might do something tomorrow. Some news and notes coming out of everything. Like I said, bring your super chats, bring everything. Bring your cold beverages. We can get wild in the chat here and have some fun. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I'll thanks, Chief. That means a lot, buddy. It really means a lot. If I'm doing something right, man, then if you guys are paying attention and you're actually watching, that means I'm doing something right. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody.